Hey guys, Timmy D with Mid-South 360. Have you been struggling with how to properly collect ground control points for your drone mapping missions and then process that data so that you have absolute accurate coordinates to bring back into your mapping software? If so, stay with me. I'm going to walk you through my process and teach you how to do that. The fact is, the whole GPS and the GNSS system is actually very complicated. It is what I would call rocket science. Collecting the data points, that doesn't have to be rocket science, but the actual stuff behind it, it's actually very complicated. And I'm going to try to bring this to you in layman's terms. I am not a certified surveyor. I'm not a civil engineer. There's a lot about the stuff that I don't know. But what I'm going to do is come to you in this video and just teach you and talk to you in layman's terms and in a practical way that I understand. And hopefully after you've watched the video, you could pick up your equipment and using the same stuff I use, be on your way to collecting and processing the data for ground control points. It was a long, hard road for me to learn. I didn't have, there really were no videos. When I got to the point where I realized, well, what software I needed, it got a lot easier, but there was still a lot of learning. And so I'm hoping to shorten your learning curve so that you can pick this stuff up pretty quickly and be on your way. Now, there's going to be more to learn other than what I'm going to have in this video, and I hope that down the road I can even bring more videos that take you to a deeper level of understanding and the stuff that you need to know as far as maybe converting the data for the engineers in your area in the specific format that they need. So hopefully in the short time to come there'll be more videos to teach you more. And again, I hope you find this video very helpful. These are some of the first tutorial videos that I've done in the past. I only did reviews as such, so certainly I'll get better over time, so forgive me for rambling on in some cases. And if you find this video helpful, I hope that you will hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and if you have any comments or questions, put them below and I'll do my best to answer. Again, I'm not a technical guy on the engineering side of this, so I can't help you with that kind of stuff. But where you really need to go, if you have the Emlid Reach RS units like I have, then you'll go to the Emlid Reach forum and you're going to find a wealth of information there. Those guys, they're phenomenal. So, really before I go any further, I want to give the disclaimer that I've already mentioned. I'm not a certified surveyor, I'm not a civil engineer, and I'm not teaching you how to be one. I'm not teaching you how to survey. What I am teaching you is how to collect data for ground control points, then process that data for absolute accuracy and not just relative accuracy, and I'll explain that in a minute, and be able to take that, put it into your drone mapping software, and have a map that is very accurately tied to the coordinates on Earth so that you now can give it to a surveyor or an engineer and he can sign off on it. If you can't provide that, you've got a worthless product. So until you can get to that point, you're just making a model. You're just flying around providing some cool 3D model that's worthless. So learn how to do this stuff and it'll pay off. So you know what? First I want to, before I go any further, I'm going to thank a couple people, and that is Stephanie at EZsurv. And so the equipment and the software that I use is the Reach RS units, which you see behind me, and then I use a software called EZsurv, and the company that makes that is EZsurv out of Canada. And Stephanie is a tech support person there, and she has been phenomenal, has helped me from day one that I signed up with the software and got it and started using it, and has taught me a lot. So I'm very thankful. That company is outstanding. The Emlid Reach RS, absolutely a great product. And you really don't need tech support for that because you have the forum, and they're on the forum. So you've got like there's a user, Tatiana, that's on there. She is part of Emlid, and who's the other guy? There's a couple others, but they're on there. But there are some fabulous users on the forum, and there's a guy on there, RTK Tour. He has been just phenomenal in helping me from day one. He's in a different country. We have a language barrier, but yet he has done all he can to try to help me and teach me, and so he has been awesome. Bide is another guy that's on there, or it might be a girl, I don't know, but Bide is the user that's on there that has very, very helpful. And now, you know, I've been on the forum recently a lot. I went for a while and wasn't as active, but there are more people. There are so many good, and these are advanced users, right? So they can answer your question and help you out. Now, one of the things that I have seen on the forum is that you've got two groups of people. You've got the engineers and the surveyors who understand this stuff at this kind of level. Then you have the drone pilots who are trying to get in to drone mapping and trying to understand, and they don't know anything about the GNSS system, GPS, satellites, correction. They don't know anything. And so you've got two different levels. That's not to say this group is unintelligent. What it says, they just don't know anything about this stuff. And these people are up here, and trying to merge the two is sometimes kind of complicated. It can be kind of tough because these guys are talking in a language that is sometimes hard to understand. But nonetheless, these guys are very helpful. And if you hang in there, you will learn. If you do not know anything about GNSS receivers, if this is brand new to you, if your knowledge of GPS and just the whole GNSS system is your Google Maps on your phone, you need to hit pause, go pop you a bag or two of popcorn, and I've got two links down below. And there's a guy, he's a professor, Stephen, and I forgot his last name. Sorry about that, but he is a professor, he's an engineer. The guy is brilliant. These two videos will teach you more. They're each about an hour and 25 minutes, so they're not a short video. When you watch both of them, one was done in 2015, the other one was done fairly recently. Watch both videos because you're going to learn a lot. You're going to come away with an understanding of just some basic principles. And if you don't have that understanding, you're really wasting your time. Just quit, because if you don't have that, you're not going to ever move forward. You're just going to ask questions on the forum, and you don't even know what you're asking, and you got to watch those. And I was there. I understand. So when I first started, I didn't have a clue, and I'm still learning. But go watch those. You'll be glad you did. Okay? So hopefully you have just come back and you have finished watching those videos, and you now have just a good basic understanding of terminology. You understand first and foremost that we need corrections. And that's really what this is all about. If you could just go out and we could just put a GPS unit over a ground control point and the data it gave us was the accurate data, I wouldn't even be here. You wouldn't be on the forum because you just go get you a GPS unit, plug it in, power it up, stick it over your point, voila, in 30 seconds it'd tell you where you are, and you put it in your mapping software, and you're a happy camper. But you know what? It doesn't work like that, because now you understand from watching Stephen's videos, Professor Stephen, that we have to have corrections. So no matter what method you're using of surveying the ground control points, you have to have corrections, because otherwise your data is going to be off, and it's off for the reasons that you learn. Atmosphere, a lot of different reasons. Okay? The biggest factor that involves how you need to survey the ground control points is distance. It's the distance you are, the job site that you're at, it's the distance you are to a reference station. Here in the United States, we have what we call CORS units. They are continually operating reference stations. they're in a fixed location. Usually they're all over. They could be at a university, they could be on a government site, wherever. But they're all over. They continually receive data. And so what happens is these CORS units, they receive satellite signals. They're on a specific point on Earth that we know where they are. Now they can take the specific point where they are, they'll take the data where the satellite said it was, that could be 6 inches, 12 inches over, whatever. Maybe it's a millimeter. But it corrects the data that where it said it thought it was, and now this is where it's at, and it says, oh, you know what? For this specific second in time, this is the correction that needed to be made to my data so that it would be accurate. And so what we do is we go out and we survey over points. We then take the same correction from the CORS unit. Let's say that's our CORS unit, that orange bucket back over there. We take that data and apply it to our own collection observation file to now take the Emlid Reach RS data and make it correct, make it absolute. When you are doing your ground control points, you can work with just one Reach RS. Okay? You do not have to have two, but again, the biggest factor is distance. Because for you to have one unit, and I'll talk about RTK later. This is just from the standpoint that we're just going to go out and collect, and we're going to post-process our data for accuracy. If you only have one unit, the furthest that you can be from a CORS station is 15 kilometers. Maybe 20, but really about 15. So if you are within 15 kilometers of a known CORS station that's publishing data, then you could go out with one single unit in unobstructed view of the sky and collect for your ground control points. Let's say you're doing 100 acres. Okay, so you're doing 100 acres and you have 5 ground control points and even multiple checkpoints throughout that 100 acres. You could walk around with one unit, and let's say our CORS station was 12 kilometers away. And I have to break down the mileage, but I know it in kilometers. Even though I travel and work in miles every day, I now know the GPS stuff in kilometers. But let's say that we know that's 12 kilometers away. So it's within the normal operating range. I now can walk around with this, and I can survey my different points. And but I have to have that unit in unobstructed view for a total minimum time of 30 minutes. I cannot walk around and say collect a point there for 2 minutes, and that's going to be what we call kinematic processing. We're in a kinematic mode because we're moving. So your two modes are kinematic and static, but we're in kinematic, and we walk around. If at any point during that time I go underneath trees, I go beside a building, and I lose satellite reception, you've just had a cycle break. Okay, so you've just had a lapse in your cycle. You're starting all over because you have to have 30 minutes minimum total time, and longer would be better, in order to go back and post-process your different points. So that's option one, is to have one unit, and you're going to post-process with a CORS station, but the furthest it can be is 15 kilometers. Option two is that you have a base station that you set up on site, and it's going to be your base, and then you're going to have your Rover unit that you're going to be able to still walk around the same way. You still need open sky. But now the fact is, having a base station on site, they're closer, and so your time, that is required to fix the ambiguity resolution is shorter. I believe that would be a correct way of saying that. But so I'll just go ahead and move into talking about your two different options on the modes that you have. You have what we call static mode, and that means you're telling the Reach RS that you're gonna put it over a spot and you are not moving it. So when you have a base station, you're gonna put that in static mode because you're not moving. It's a different algorithm. You want to tell it that, hey, I'm not going to move you. I'm going to put you here, you're going to log, and you're sitting still. But your Rover unit that you're going to be moving around with, you're going to put that in kinematic mode because you're telling that unit when you log into the Reach View app, and we'll go through all that in a little bit, you're telling that you're going to be moving around. We're going point to point. And so the processing and the algorithm of calculating where it's at is a little different because you're now in kinematic mode. You will hear the term RTK. RTK is real-time kinematics, and that means that your Rover unit is receiving corrections in real time. It's not doing it post-processing after the fact, it's actually getting it in real time. And so the two most common ways of getting real-time corrections is either through a network online, which means you have to have network connectivity, a data connection like a jetpack or through your phone or some other way. You have to have a device that has internet connectivity all the time hooked up to that Rover unit, and then it gets corrections from a service. That can be very expensive. Some, like the state of Florida, they provide that free of charge. They have CORS units all over for corrections, and it's free. In the state of Mississippi, where I am, I can have one. I can sign it's through the University of Southern Mississippi. I can have one device that can get corrections at a time. That's it. If it was going to be more than that, you have to pay for it. But one is free. Other states have free, and in some states nothing's free. Tennessee, you have to pay. So to use any of the stations in Tennessee, you have to sign up through the MDO, Tennessee Department of Transportation. So it just varies state to state. So that part of it can get expensive if you're doing RTK through a third party. The other option for RTK is using what we call the LoRa radio. And that means that this, you see the black antenna, that means the base station is providing corrections to the Rover, and now you can have RTK. Now what that's going to mean is that when this is in RTK mode, when we set it up for RTK, and you have a fixed solution, that means it knows where it's at, right? It knows in relation to this. Everything that you survey, all these points that you survey, are going to be accurate relative to this base unit. So if you can see it on the camera, let's say that point right there, that's the point where it's over. And even that doesn't really matter because this Rover is going to be accurate when you're doing RTK using LoRa, using this as the reference base. All these points, I'm talking about, they will be very accurate, down to the centimeter level, but it's relative to that. You remember earlier, we said this unit, it's here on Earth, but yet when we go back and look at the coordinates, what it shows is that right there. Well, now all of these are accurate relative to that inaccurate mark right there. So what we have to do is we have to go back, we have to post-process this base to adjust the coordinates so that it's back to where it belongs. Where it's real, absolute location on Earth. And when we do that, that will now adjust all of these points so that they are now correct. And so that's doing RTK. So just because you have RTK does not mean it's absolutely accurate to its point on Earth. It just means it's relatively accurate to the base that's providing it. Now, one option would be to have real-time corrections to your base. So you can do that. You can actually have a mobile device set up, and you can have what we call intrip corrections to your base so that it is now fixed. It has a fixed, basically, RTK solution with another base, and then it in turn provides corrections to your Rover. And that's really a good solution. And if for any reason you lose your internet connection during this process, this will still have, provided you got a good open sky, this Rover unit is going to have relative accuracy to the base, and even if we lose our internet connection, we can go back and post-process later. So the good thing about, RTK is great when it works, but if you lose it, or you don't have it, or something happens and goes wrong in the middle of collecting your data, we'll just go back and post-process the base, and everything will now still be absolutely accurate. So that's it in a nutshell. That's a simple overview, and it's truly that simple, just from an overview standpoint. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the software settings, going into the Reach RS units and setting them up. When you set them up, it's not difficult. There are guides online if you'll just follow that. But I'm going to walk through. I'm going to show it to you, show you what I have, and we'll take a look at that. And that's it for that part. I can collect a few points, and then I'm going to show you the processing side of it on how to process the data with EZsurv. So we'll walk through the collection data, the collection of data. Then after that's done, we'll go through and walk through processing it. And another thing I'm going to do, most of you guys, you may know how to set your tripod up, how to do all that, but I'm going to still walk through for somebody that just doesn't know. And one of the things I did not mention is that depending on your circumstance, what you're doing, you could go to a job site and you could create your own known point. And I have a different video that shows just how to check your accuracy, how well are you collecting data, because you go over and you basically survey what we call a benchmark or a known point, and then you look at your result for that and you compare it to the data sheet on the NGS website, and I'm going to have links to that, and you see, well, how accurate was I? Was I within 2 centimeters of where they say that mark is, or was I a foot? So that's a good thing to know. How well are you collecting data? Because if you can't collect it and provide accurate data to the surveyors and engineers, then you got to find another job. But what I was going to mention is that you can set up a benchmark. So you can go to a job site, and you could take a rebar, and you can cut rebar that's foot long, whatever, and you could drive it in the ground and use a loss of words, but just put a little point in the end of it so you have your center point. So I've actually created a benchmark. You can actually see in the distance, possibly the top of another tripod over there, I created a benchmark in my own yard. I'm going to do some tests between the Reach RS and the Reach RTK and just kind of see how does the accuracy between those two compare on the exact same tripod, and that'll be for another video, so I'm going to do some tests on that. But you create a benchmark, and you might have to go out ahead of time and you let a base station sit there and observe over that benchmark for say 2 hours. Now you can go back and process that and have an accurate mark of where that benchmark is. When you go back to fly, maybe you're going to go back and do that mission multiple times, or maybe an engineer has set up a benchmark on a job site and you're going to go out and fly it. You're going to take your base station and you're going to set it up over that benchmark. Then what you do is you take and you enter the coordinates manually. You put it into the Reach RS and you say, this is where you are. So now you have manually entered the coordinates into the base. Now you take your rover and you go out and you can survey your ground control points. This is accurate because you've already put the coordinates in. So basically there is no post-processing, because now this has the real accuracy of where it's at, and that'll make this absolutely accurate to that, and that's another way of doing your job. So there are multiple ways, multiple methods of surveying the data, and a lot of it just depends on the distance you are from the core station, what is available to you for data correction, and factors like that. So I hope this part of it's been beneficial. We're going to look at the software setup, and then we will look at processing data that's been collected. Hey guys, Timmy D with Mid-South 360 with a quick public service announcement. All YouTubers, all of them, now need 1,000 subscribers in order to make $1 single off the YouTube videos. I'm sure you know, but man, it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, especially to make, say, an hour, hour and a half long video. So if you'll help me out, click that subscribe button. You can do that right now while you're watching. Go down and click subscribe. You'll be one more toward my 1,000. Secondly, if you like this video, hit that like button. That just lets me know that you liked it and it was helpful. Next, if you have any suggestions, like a particular video you want to see on a subject or just a specific question, put it down in the comments below, and if it's at all possible, I will do that. I work full time, but if I can make a video and it will help multiple people on YouTube, I'll be glad to do that. And lastly, I want to give a huge thank you to Michael Lambert out of Texas. Michael was very helpful in making this video. He was able to give me some suggestions and help look at the material, make sure everything was being covered and covered accurately. So thank you to Michael. He is a Emlid user, a user on the Emlid forum, and an advanced one at that. He's a certified surveyor. He does drone mapping, and specifically he does drone mapping on construction sites. And so I do hope to collaborate with Michael sometime in the near future to make more specific videos that will really help you get your work ready for the job site managers and the people that are wanting construction site maps, so that you have it in the format that they need. Everything is ready to go. They don't have to do any conversions. You don't have to convert it. They don't have to convert it to state planes. So that is going to be coming up sometime in the near future. Thank you again for watching. Now back to your regular programming. Alright guys, we're up at what I like to call my little playground for doing some survey testing. There's a known benchmark right over there, probably 40 yards. But anyway, so let me fire this baby up here. Alright, so what we're going to go over right now is I'm going to show you what I talked about earlier, which was option 1, and that is having one Reach Rover. Well, actually it doesn't matter if it's a Rover or a baby. We got one unit, and the core's station is about 9 kilometers from here. And so the first thing I need to do is I'm going to get connected up to my Reach Rover, and there it is in the Wi-Fi. And while I'm thinking about it, the only problem I ever have with the Reach RS units is the stinking Wi-Fi. I mean, I'm on the latest version, I think what, 1.16, but I mean, I still have Wi-Fi issues. I cannot put my finger on it. the one thing that does work best, what happens is if you set up a Wi-Fi on your home office or home, wherever, and then you're going to go out and do some testing, and then your Reach RS unit is sort of within range of the Wi-Fi, but it's in and out, that will cause you havoc. What I really would recommend is that you set up a Wi-Fi network for the Reach, but you only, other than the hotspot option, is you add in like a jetpack or your phone hotspot, something that's either on or off that you can control. When you go to your office Wi-Fi, you're just going to have that on all the time. Chances are you're not going to go cut it off. But if you have a little, like I have a Verizon jetpack, or you have a hotspot, you set up a hotspot on your phone, and that's the Wi-Fi that is used. But that is something you can easily turn on and off. And so if you do that, in my opinion, that'll really help you. So I'm going to open up the Reach View app, and we're going to see the Reach Rover there. And the very first thing I got to do is I got to get logging going. So go to logging, and I'm going to go ahead and click on. Now you can see the timer just started down there. We're at 4 seconds, 5 seconds. You see it counting, so we're good there. Now the one thing I'm going to go through, I already showed you. There's the status. There's the satellites we see. Up here at the very top, when I click there, you can see I'm on version 2.16.0. And that is the latest one. It says up to date, but it doesn't know that unless you're connected to a Wi-Fi with internet. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go to my correction input. I'm going to turn that off because there is no corrections being provided. So for this test, we're just doing a single solution only. We're just going to let this thing, it's going to need to log for a total of 30 minutes. So I'm going to collect the survey point from the benchmark, because we're then going to compare the results that we get from this on that benchmark, and I'm also going to do the manhole covers, and I like to do those so that I can export this out, put it in Google Maps, and Google Maps is not centimeter accurate. It kind of varies in different, even here. So down closer to my house, I will know that I have a very accurate survey, and yet it's off on Google Earth. If you look at the satellite view, where up here, it's almost spot on. So I'm not exactly sure why that happens, but the Google Earth up here actually seems to be more in line with the true coordinates that are on the actual surface. So again, don't know exactly why. But I've turned off my base corrections. So again, RTK settings, they do not matter here because we're not doing RTK. Our base mode, average single, that's good for that. And we're logging, so we're good. So the first thing we want to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to set up a new project. My fingers are cold. Okay. And we're going to call this Airways, because this is Airways Boulevard. We're right up by the airport, so we'll probably hear jets flying over anytime now. Airways, and I think today is the 11th, so we'll just 11. Where's the number? That's good enough. 11/11. Arthur 10. Okay. All right. So I have the survey set up. I'm not worrying about checking any of these solutions here right now. I'll explain a little bit of that later. And so the next step will be to actually add a point. Now, the one thing that I want to mention before I start collecting these points, it is so important. Let me go back. I have, on this prism pole, it is an adjustable pole. You can take it up or down. If you are new to this, just set when you have one like this, it's adjustable. Some of them are fixed 2-meter poles, just to save yourself trouble and headache. You set it at 2 meters, and that's just what you do every time. Now, when you have a tripod that you have to adjust over, say, a fixed point, that's different. And then we're going to measure for that one. For this one here, I set it to 2 meters, and I don't worry about it. I just I go with it, and then it will automatically adjust for the a little adapter that's up there. So what you can see on my screen here is that it is already set to 2 meters, but I do need to put a check mark here that says I use the adapter, and you see that it actually turned it to orange on the little image there. I'm going to save that. And so now, and this is strictly your pole height. It's automatically calculating the 65 is it 65 millimeters? Yeah, from here up to the antenna is 65, so it's already adding the additional 65 to whatever your pole height that you enter. So I'm going to go ahead and take off and go survey some points, and then I'll do a screen recording on part of that. We're going to have to let this thing log, so we're already at 4 minutes and 39 seconds. So it's got to log for a total of at least 30 minutes. And this is for using EZsurv, and we're just going to post-process all of the survey points. So in the field, how this relates to ground control points, we go out, fly, we know that we have a core station within 15 kilometers. I've already gone online to the website and checked, and I was right at 9 kilometers to the core station. So I'm going to come out with 1 unit. I'm going to go and survey. Today my ground control points are going to be the manhole covers and the benchmark. Of course, if we were flying, it'd be the targets that were out on the ground that you were photographing. And of course, when you're doing drone mapping, ground control points can be painted lines in a parking lot. So they don't have to be a target that you put out, but a very recognizable and very defined point that's going to be in your photograph can also be. So that's what we're going to do today, and I'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll check it later today, this evening, and process and see how it goes. If you are new to surveying or obtaining ground control points, this is a prism pole. I have a little bipod just to hold this upright, and it's got the bubble vial in here. So it is important that you get this perfectly upright and level. And so you can overlook the top and see. To get it close, I'll actually push both buttons in, so this thing doesn't move until you push your button in. Okay, so I push it and let go. Now it's locked. You push, and so what you do is, if you're in dirt, I'm in gravel, so I can't really do that right now, but if I was in dirt, I'd push it in the ground. Then I'm going to move this and try to get it almost centered. Once I've got it to where it's almost dead center, what I'm really going to do, and I actually have it right there, but then I'm going to actually move one at a time. So I only move one in the direction I need to go to get it, just perfect. And you want it perfect. The only thing that's acceptable is it to be perfectly in the middle, which it is now. So anytime you do your points, because you can imagine you've got 2 meters, if the bubble, if you go, it's close enough, if you have any slight tilt, now we're centimeters off from there to where this is, and that's going to throw your survey off. And again, the next very important factor is the height. You have to have correct height when you're doing entering the survey into the ReachView app, and when you have a base station, it is so critical that you have a very precise height. So next stop we make, we're going to use the base unit, and then I'll show you guys what I do for that. So, all right, we'll get after it. Something I want to explain real quick before I get into the actual processing. I've already done the video on the first scenario, and let me bring this up. You can see here in the center the output format is in degrees, minutes, and seconds, and I will include a link that explains the difference. But EZsurv can display and output your format in 2 different formats. They are the same points on Earth, but one format is in degrees, minutes, and seconds. So 34 degrees, 59 minutes, and then there's your seconds, 47 point blah blah blah. Now if I come up here to tools
and I go to my options, and I go to general. Right down here in this bottom corner, not only, so the two things I can change are the actual angle. If I go to decimal degrees, and I can have all of my stuff, instead of metric, I could put it in feet. So you can do international feet or US survey feet. But honestly, everything is really done in meters. So that's how I output. So I'm going to change this to decimal degree and do OK. Now watch how it changes. And so now you see that it's different. The latitude and longitude is still going to be the same starting point, but then where it changes is in that decimal for your minutes and seconds. So again, look at that link. I've got a tiny URL, so it'll be easy for you to just read it off the screen, and then the regular full link will be down below in the description. And that, if you don't really fully understand the difference between the two, there is a very nice, simple, well-written little article that explains that with images. So again, before we went any further, I just wanted you to see the difference in that. And then at the end of the video, so at the very end, you know, one of the very crucial things that you need to know how to do is, once you've post-processed your stuff, your ground control points, is to be able to actually export them ready to go into either Drone Deploy or Pix4D. That's going to be the two main software that people are using. But it would be the same principle if there's something else that you can work with, because you can customize the output. But we'll go over that. That'll be the very last segment that shows the export process, and should be very beneficial. Now back to the regular video. Alright, so I have already downloaded the log file and the survey file from the Reach Rover, and so we're going to just process the data that was specifically related to the Reach Rover when I did just the single rover. There's no base, no RTK, just a single mode, so a single solution. So first thing I need to do is come in here and unzip these. So I'm going to extract here, and that CSV, that's the actual survey file created by the ReachView app. And then this one is going to, that one is going to be the log file. So let's extract here. I extract them to the same folder. Alright, so now the next thing we have to do is we're going to use this little conversion utility that EZsurv provides. And Rover, these are the survey points. And what this conversion does is take the CSV that's created by the ReachView app along with the log file and creates an XML file that is needed to bring in and do all the processing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on generate, and you'll see here's the XML file right there that was generated. So I'm going to close that utility. Now I'm going to open up the EZsurv software, and then we will bring that XML file in. One of the things that I did do when I did the single rover survey, you know, I really was in error in that. I mean, one, I will always use a base in a rover. So that's, you know, everything I do, that's what I'm going to do. In using that, some of my collection times were really too short. They should have been longer. But anyway, let's go ahead and just bring that in. Here's the XML file, and when you open up EZsurv, it'll default to this observations folder. So all you do is drag the XML file here. It will then look at the data in there. It'll create the survey sites, and it'll also bring in the log file that goes with the survey, and we'll have all the information we need then to go ahead and do the automatic post-processing. So this represents the log file. It tells you the date, the time that it started. Now this is in UTC time, not local time. So there's the UTC time, and then the duration was 41 minutes and 55 seconds, which actually is not bad. Again, where I could have made some major improvements would have been to actually log longer. But anyway, so now let's go. Here are the different sites. In the Reach View app, I only named the first one, which represented the benchmark. The rest of these were just manhole covers. So I'm going to go up to Tools, and I click on Process Auto. And what this is going to do is look for the closest core station. And you saw it blink up for a second there. The closest one was 8 kilometers, so it's going to be between 8 and 9 kilometers away. And it will now go through and process the trajectory between the cores and all of these points, and we will then have our post-processed data, and it will tell us whether in post-processing whether we actually have a fixed solution or a float solution as well. And so it'll pop up, and so here we had a total of 5 points, and it says that all 5 were actually considered a fixed solution. Now you can have a fixed solution but still have inaccuracies, and you're going to have just a certain amount of inaccuracy that's in a fixed solution, and then in a float it's going to be up to, say, like the meter level, and so it can vary, and then if you don't even have a float it can be higher than that. So anyway, let's look. Here are the field coordinates that are before they're processed right here. This is the ZME1. This is the coordinates of the core station. Here are our pre-processed coordinates, and then when I click on this icon right here, that is going to show me our post-processed coordinates. And then we can go up here and export that out. Sites, and we could export out a CSV file. Okay, and that's what we would do to bring that into our mapping software. So it's really just that easy to go in and bring in your data, process it. If you want to come here and look at your satellite information, you can look at that. Here's the observed satellites. So the ones in gray represent we didn't have good observation there, and we can look at this in both the code data and the carrier phase data. So let's see, that's the signal to noise ratio chart for the various satellites as well. So I hope this has been helpful, and we'll do the base and rover setup situation as well.
Alright, so I'm actually starting to run out of daylight. It's been a long day, but I wanted to go over the last scenario, and that is that you're at a job site and you have a benchmark. It could be that you had an engineer go in ahead of time and they set that benchmark up, and so one, it'd just be good to use it, because if they set it up, that's gonna be a known point. So I would definitely use that when you have it. Okay, so this is, you probably can't see on the camera, but here's the benchmark. This is the same one that I used the prism pole on earlier. And so I've got my tripod, and I actually have a laser plumb. I mean, some, old school guys have a plumb bob, but man, I love my laser plumb. Now this has this little old dinky bubble level in it. I actually have a 60 millimeter bubble level that I put in the top of this tri-brack, and this thing, there's lines on all 3 of these, and this should start out where your dials are turned to the lines, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my legs kind of spread out a little even, okay, and then I've got my laser, and it's already in the middle of the line, and I'm going to bring this over so I can show you. And then you can see that laser, maybe.
If I get a little closer, there you can see the laser light. So I now have, I've got the laser. Now one thing, there's a, underneath here, I can loosen this up so that I can move this all around the top. What I want is I want to have this thing already centered when I start, because when I do my final adjustment, I'm going to be able to slide it over. I want it centered. I'm going to put this tripod, boom, it is right now, and now it's not exactly level, but it's pretty close. I'm going to mash these in. Now, I started out with my brackets not all the way down. You have to have movement to either raise the leg. And so now I'm going to go back and try to get this fairly level with the leg adjustment. Okay, so now my bubble, man, my bubble is almost perfectly level. I mean, it literally, and the laser is off of the very center point, maybe by 1.5 centimeters. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm already within the range here. So now I'm going to use my dial adjustments, and I want to get this thing to where it is perfectly level. I mean perfect. I'm just getting this dial to where I'm going to turn it to where that bubble is perfectly centered. Okay, that's perfect. It just cannot get any closer than that. Now, I know that this is perfectly level. So now what I'm going to do, I have this little the tightener down underneath. I'm going to loosen it up so that I now can move this thing around. It's perfectly level. My legs are in the ground. It's not going anywhere. I'm going to move this until that dot to my red laser plumb is exactly even with the very center point of this benchmark. I mean, it's tiny. So I am spot on, and I'm still level right here. So now that that is good, I'm going to tighten it up, and I'm set. I'm not going to move that thing. I know that it's perfect in its alignment. Now I'm ready to go ahead and put my receiver on, tighten it up. My laser plumb is still showing perfect in the middle. I can actually turn it off. So now I'm ready to go ahead and we'll turn this on and get it fired up. So the next thing that I will do is that I'll go ahead and start the logging process. This is now fixed over a known point. I know the coordinates of that known point. Alright, I just want to go in real quick and show you where to change your settings if you want to enter a known point in your base unit. So I'm actually using my Rover because the battery on my other one died. But you go into base mode, and under coordinates it'll have your input mode. You simply come down here and choose manual, and here's where you're going to enter your lat long and height data, and that's of the actual point, and then you still would come down and actually enter the antenna height. And so that's the data that you will enter for the manual mode. Hit apply, and that's it. Your unit will now be broadcasting corrections. If you set it up for RTK, so you still want to do RTK via LoRa to your roving unit, and you will now be broadcasting corrections from the known point. There will be no post-processing necessary with that unit, and provided you've got a good RTK connection throughout your survey process of collecting the ground control points, you will be set. Alright, I hope this helps. But I also wanted to show you that the accuracy of setting this up
setting it up over a benchmark, because what we're going to do is we're going to process this, post-process it after the fact, and see that the coordinates that we come up with in our post-processing is going to be very accurate to the data, to the known points that's on that data sheet. And so, and they should be. So if you're doing things right, they ought to be within, you know, a centimeter of each other. So now granted, we can have other issues with just corrections and things like that, that it you know, have a little bit more variation, but we ought to be within a centimeter or two. And then I'm also going to measure the height of this. I'm going to put my laser measure on there. I'm going to measure the height, because since I'm using this, I'm going to go out and do 1 or 2 points out there. That's it. Do a one manhole. Maybe even just do one manhole cover, but maybe 2. But this base is still again going to be used as the reference for the Rover that I'm going to do those ground control points out there. And so I need to know the height of this antenna, this receiver. If you don't, it's no good. So you have to know, and it needs to be very accurate. So I'm going to know, I'm going to measure, and I'll even do, like I said at the last location, I'm going to do a survey with this one, because that's the opportunity for me to go ahead and actually log the antenna height so I don't forget. So when I take it, I'll do a survey, and that way it's logged in the Reach View app, and that makes it real easy when I'm going back later and looking at the data and processing it. I've got my height, and I don't have to remember, oh my gosh, what was the antenna height. So alright, so we're going to run through the let's look at the settings for each of these units. And I'm going to go ahead and start the recording here on the screen recording. Alright, so I want to just let's look at the base first. And earlier I'd forgot to do screen recording, so I'll have to kind of redo this. So I'm going to run down. You can see my status is fixed. You can see that the baseline is at 11.377 kilometers. So it's not far. You can see these bars jumping up and down a lot. So I think there's a lot of interference, especially over there. So hopefully everything works fine with it. I mean, we have a fixed solution. I can tell you it's not pristine, because when you have the perfect situation, that AR ambiguity resolution validation will go to 999 and it'll stay there. I mean, when you just there's no interference, nothing around, everything's perfect, and it just jumps up there and it stays. But this one, we're bouncing up and down, so there's we're in a less than perfect situation for sure. I want to show you, here's the RTK settings I have. So because that unit's not going to be moved, it's over a fixed point, a known point, I got it set to static. Fix and hold for the GPS AR mode. GLONASS AR mode is on. And then I'll just scroll down and you can see the settings. And all these are just the recommended settings. I'm not doing anything special. I'm just reading the book and doing what other people say do. And so here, this is my correction input. So I have interrupt corrections coming in, and down at the bottom you see it's connected. So there we go, and that's where we're getting RTK from. So my base has RTK, and I think I mentioned this earlier, but our RTK solution in the field has nothing to do with us going back and post-processing the data. Two completely different situations. You can, you can go back and post-process just to validate your RTK data. If you have a situation where you lose your fix, so let's say you go from fix to float in your solution status, you can, with EZsurv, you can tell it to only post-process your survey points that were not a fix. or you can post-process all of them. So that's really just a personal preference. I'm going to post-process all of them and just kind of compare and see how they are. Now, position output, again, we've already talked about that before. This is if you're going to send your position to your but here's our base mode. This is where we're actually outputting the corrections from that base to this rover. We have LoRa turned on. You can see the frequency, the data rate. That is set to average single. Again, that is I'm just following the guidelines. Now, you see that there's your RTCM3 messages that are going out. You see the options I have selected there, okay? And we're logging. So we've been logging for 33 minutes, and I'm gonna let that rascal run for an hour. And then I'll also, when I log over a benchmark like that, I'm still, it makes it easy to go ahead and actually do a survey. So I will do a survey, collect 1 point over that benchmark so that I actually have that, and it makes it kind of easy when I bring it in to EZsurv, and I'll show you why later. And that's really it. We got our Wi-Fi right there, and so we're going to close this out. And now I'm going to switch over to the Rover. I'll try to make this quick, guys. I know I probably just lingered on and done some babbling. I hope it is very helpful for you, especially if you're new to it. You know what? I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know everything, because I don't. I've learned a lot, but I have a lot yet left to learn. And in doing these videos, it was my goal to, I realized, I mean, just how stinking hard it was for me to get going. I could not wrap my brain around some of this stuff. And then once you have that aha, now I understand, man, it's a happy day. And until then, you just beat your head against the wall and you're just trying to go, why can I not understand this? And eventually one day, you know, either it's how somebody presents it or whatever, but you just have the aha moment, and man, it's a good feeling. So I hope your feeling comes a lot sooner than mine did, that's for sure. Okay, so let's run down to this real quick. I've been babbling. You see my status, I have a fix, and again, this is the Rover, so we're dealing with the Rover here. Here are the RTK settings. So on this one, we have it set to Kinematic, right? Because I'm going to take this thing and move it around and survey some of the manhole covers in a few spots so we can have something to visibly look at on Google Earth. And again, we know Google Earth is that's not the end all. That's not what we're going by. It'll just show us like our pre-processing and post-processing, how they compare. But as far as it being accurate down to the center points, so say those manhole covers, it's not. But it's a good reference and just something good to kind of give you a visible something to look at. Let's go. Now, here's our correction input. So we are getting corrections from the base via the LoRa radio. So anyway, you see that? There's no position output here. Our base mode is just set to average single. We are logging, and we've been logging here for actually 24 minutes now. And so I'm going to wrap up on the video. There's no need. I'm just going to go out and survey the different points. I'm going to so this has a fix. So the fact is, we can go out now. You know what I will? I'm going to go into the survey, and I'm just going to show you something. So I'm going to do new project. We're going to call this scenario 3. Take 2. Take 1 was a fail. 10. Okay. We'll do next. What you can do is you can set up these rules. So you can just go in and click on them. And what this says is, if you click this rule, it says, hey, if you have a fix, if your solution is currently in fixed status, you're going to observe for, right now it's set to 40 seconds, which is adequate. If I go ahead and select the next one, it says, hey, if your solution bumps down to float, like you've lost your fix, but you're in float, then it's gonna collect for 5 minutes, because now we need to collect longer so that we can average that out. And then it says, you know what? You don't have float or fix. You've lost it all. Now you're in single. You need to collect for 10 minutes. But so anyway, I'm going to go ahead and actually enable all of these rules. We have a fix. I doubt we'll even lose it. So that, and the one thing we have to do is I have to come in and set my pole height. I'm using the adapter. So right, there's my gold adapter, and you can see on this screen capture, you can see it actually highlights that. There it is. And it even automatically adds your antenna height for the 65 millimeters to go up to the actual antenna. So I'm going to do save. Now, if I were to, you know what? I'm going to survey that point right there. It's just a point on the ground. So I'm going to hit collect, and we're just going to call it grass, because that's all it is. So I'm going to hit collect, but watch what it's going to do. It's counting down. You can see we're at 37, 36, because you look up here in the top up here, top left, it says we have a fixed solution. And since it's fixed, it's only going to collect for 40 seconds, and then it will automatically save that and be ready for me to move on to the next one. So, you know, if you're out surveying, you have this thing mounted. That's what I really need. I have one. It's not on here because I used it for a different project. But you have your little tablet holder mounted on there. You go to the next point, accept, carry it. If you got a fix, 40 seconds, boop, move on, and you can just roll right along. So you got your base and your Rover, and you go out to the site. Now you can go down, and with a fix, man, you can just move right along. Now you still have to log for the correct amount of time, but as far as just going around and collecting your points, it isn't going to take you but 40 seconds each one, provided you've got that RTK fixed status on your Rover. So you can see right here, I'm ready to hit save and go. Right, so I'm going to hit save and go. And now when I get to the next one, I'm going to hit collect, be the same thing all over again. And we still have a fixed solution. So I think that's clear. I hope so. All right, see you in the office.
Alright guys, I'm going to run through a quick version of processing the base and Rover setup. So there'll be very little explanation. I'm just going to run through step by step. I'll explain what I can as we're moving, and then after this one I'll redo it all over again, but it'll be longer and with explanations of different options in the program. So I mean, if you just want to see all about that, you can actually skip this first one and just go to the second complete longer version. But if you don't even care about that stuff, you can just run through this and be done. But the next one will have a lot of good information in it. Alright, so the first thing I need to do, we are going to do this from the very get-go. So I'm going to go to my base. There was no, alright, so yep, this base. Let's go to logging because there was no survey file for that. I'm going to save it. Save it to the base folder. That's good. I'm going to go to Rover. And now on the Rover, we are going to save both the log file. Rover, that's correct. And we need to download the survey file. In the same one. And in the second video I'll talk about that maybe, but you see that there's actually a drone deploy format here. So if you were to have like an RTK solution and weren't going to do any processing, you just export this out for drone deploy, which you also could use in Pix4D. You just have to make a few changes to the heading. Alright, excuse me, we're done there. Next we need to unzip them. So in the base, extract here. Always do extract here, not that way you don't put it in a subfolder. Go to the Rover, do the first one, extract here, then go to this one, same thing. Okay, Now we need to do our conversion utility, and what this will do is convert both the CSV file that is for the survey and the log file, and what it's doing, it's matching up the timestamps so that it can process it. So this will take both of those and then create the file that it needs for processing, and when I click generate, you're going to see the XML file appear right there. I'm going to close this. Now let's open up EZsurv file. We're going to do a new project, and I'm going to drag this XML file right there. Alright, so we're going to, that's alright, it's good you can see this. We want to process the base first, so I'm going to cancel. Yep. And then I want to delete this file. I'm going to delete it. Yep. So now there's nothing. And so what I want to do is we want to do the base first, because we're going to process the base, then we're going to use the base as the reference for the rover. So in that case we want to process this one first. So there's that. It'll create this one site from the log file. So let's go to Tools, Process Auto. It's looking for bases within 100 kilometers, and it found 3 right there. And that doesn't take long. So we're done with that. The one thing, man, it's easy to forget that you have to enter the antenna height. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back right now, and let's see, go to Sites, this one. This is where you have to come in and enter the antenna height, because there was no survey, so it was not in the log file. So I'm going to do, it was 1.595. I'm going to do OK. And actually, 1.595 plus 0.065. 1.66 is what it should be. Because when you do it manually, you have to. What did I say that was? 1.66. Okay. Alright, don't want to forget that. That's important. Now we're going to come back up to observations. We're going to make this our reference. So I right mouse click and then choose reference. I'm just going to do OK. Now we're ready to bring in the rover files. So I'm going to go to Rover, bring it into the observation folder, and what this is doing is saying, hey, you've got some points that are within 10 meters. Is this correct? And it is. But that's just a way to make sure that something hasn't been duplicated. And so it'll get the sites parsed out, put those in the site folder, and then it'll actually bring in the log file and put it here in the observations folder. And then I'm going to take both of those files, both the rover, so I'm going to take this rover, oh, that's the base and the rover, and we're going to drag it down to the trajectories to create that. Now I click, left mouse click on that folder, and I come over and I'm going to right mouse click on this one and choose process. Now this one actually take a little bit longer, so I will let this run, and in the final video I will speed it up 10 times to reduce the wait time. I'll be right back. Alright, so we had 9 sites, and you can see that 9 had a fixed status in the post-processing, so that's good. And when I click up here, that's the processed, and there's the post. And these are being displayed in degrees decimal, and earlier I explained the difference in that. So that's it. This is ready to be exported out. So I would go to export sites, pick the format that I want, and send it out. So that'll conclude this video. We will redo it one more time, but with a lot of explanation of the different stuff in the program. So if you want to learn a lot more about just the everything, and watch that one. Thank you. Alright, so here we go. We're going to run through the base Rover setup with processing the data, and this is going to be a full version where I'll just kind of go into a little more detail on some of the different sections. And I will still, in case somebody skipped the first section, I'm going to go ahead and download the log file so you see everything from start to finish. So we're on the base, so the only thing we need is the base file, the log file. Okay, and then we'll go up here to the Reach Rover, and I'm on a Wi-Fi jetpack from Verizon, so I can have my computer, both of those connected to it. I can just switch tabs, makes it kind of nice. Alright, so on this one, the Rover, I need this CSV file. And just so you know, I mean, they have these different options that you can output. This one, it says Drone Deploy. That just outputs it in a format that's ready to go into Drone Deploy. But it's not going to be any processing done. It's just the file right off of the receiver. If you have a base and a Rover and you're doing RTK and you do not need to do any post-processing, you know, it'd be kind of a slick deal. And you can use this file. The fact is, you can use this file for Pix4D. It is a-okay. All you have to do is just change the headings. So you just have your sample and you change the column titles to be what Pix4D needs, but the columns themselves, they're the same. If you don't have accuracy data going in with it, then they're identical. So no big deal on that. So we're going to download the CSV. Rover, do that. Alright, so we're done with that. Now let's go ahead and unzip both of them. 7-zip, extract here. Go to Rover. Oh, you know what I forgot? Forgot the log file. So we got to download it. Save it to the Rover, that's correct. You always want to make sure you're putting it in the right spot. Alright. Now we're ready. There we go. 7-zip, extract here. Always do that option. Don't put it in subfolders, it makes it a lot easier. And then 7-zip, extract here. Did the wrong one. 7-zip, extract here. Okay. Alright, move you back up. And again, if you didn't see it in the first one, we have to use this conversion utility to convert both the CSV from the survey and the raw data file so that it can pull out the information it needs to post-process these survey points. So when I click generate, you'll see the XML file appear up there. There it is, right there. I'm going to close this out because we're done. Now we're ready to go into EZsurv. And if you know what I'm going to do, I'm going to close EZsurv. And when you open it back up, it'll open and it'll run through. It's not updating the actual program. What it's updating are map files and other data files from within the program. So it's not an actual upgrade like to a new version, but and you can set that to run every time, which you should, and it will update your working files, if you will, for the data that it's using to process. So when we bring in, the first thing we're going to do is bring in our base unit. So I'm going to switch back over and go to base, and I'm going to bring, because we want to process it first. Now, when you bring this in, it already recognized that it was a static file, so it put this little icon, little base icon on it. Some of the things worth mentioning, so I'm going to go to options and combinations. So when you are processing a base, you can tell EZsurv, well, what is the maximum distance I want you to go look for base stations to process with, and how many base stations do you want EZsurv to use. So I have mine set to 100 kilometers in 3. If it did not find, if it could only find 2 bases within 100 kilometers, that's all it's going to use. And it will pop up in a message and say, two base stations was all I could find. Now, you could, let's say you had a base that was 110 kilometers. Well, you could just increase your distance here and then be able to pull that third one in. That's if a third one exists. Now, that's one thing, so I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. Now, you also need to tell it, well, what base stations do you want to even use to look for. So I'm going to go to Base Stations, Providers Manager, and you may be in a different part of the country, and that's where you'd go, the world, and you'll find your stuff here. But in America, so I'm going to go, and the datum that we're using is this NAT83 course 2010. So I'm going to click on that, and then I come down and click on Get Station Coordinate List, and it'll bring up all 1600, is that right? Yeah. You can see there are 1651 stations. I only have the one selected that I'm interested in using. So if I come all the way down, whoop, there was one. So there's a couple in Tennessee. Now it'll even tell you the distance. So that one right there, that's 100 and, no, I'm sorry, that is not the distance, that's the height. Well, maybe, no, it does not tell you the distance. So I'm not exactly sure. There's a way to look on a chart and tell where they are, but if you need to pick units that are further out, then this is where you'll go and turn them on and turn them off. And you could just select all, but I think to speed up processing without it looking through, I just picked just the ones I wanted. And come down, are there any more? Yeah, there's another one. This is the one in Memphis. That's the one that's 8 kilometers away. So close that and close here. And I am going to do some tests, and I'll do another video on that where I go and pick based cores units that are, say, within 100 kilometers. Then I'm going to disable those, and I'm going to set the closest cores units that I can pick from at, say, 300 kilometers. And then I'll probably even go out as far as 500 kilometers so that we can see how does the accuracy change as we go out further, because I'll have the base unit static over a known point, and I'm going to log it for, say, 2 to 4 hours so that it has good log time, and now we can see how distance is affecting the post-processing accuracy. I think that'll be interesting to look at, and it may find that it's not affected that much. There will be some, but we'll do some tests and see. Alright, so I am now ready to process. I'm going to click on Tools, Process Auto. And again, there's the first one, the second one at 45 kilometers, third one at 79. So it found the 3 within 100. and it is going through the processing now. And we're done. Two are fixed, one is float, and there's your distance, 79 kilometers, 45, and 8.4. So I click on this yellow folder to go back to the project manager, and what I want to do now is I want to tell this to be my reference. And so I'm going to right mouse click, and then I come down and say use as reference, and you can just click on OK. Now I could rename it if I wanted to, but there's no need to. Okay, now we're ready to bring in the Rover files, because we processed our base. We said we want it to be the reference, so I'm going to bring these in, and it's going to pop this up again because I have points that are within 10 meters of each other. Under normal working conditions that would not be the case for doing regular GCPs, but it's good that it'll tell you that, because you'll know something went wrong if it wasn't supposed to be that close, and it was. Alright, you can see there it's doing a data analysis. And now here is the log file for the Rover, and it's got the little van to tell you that's the Rover one, and this one is the base station to represent what they are. Now, one thing that is easy to forget, when you are going to use the Rover, excuse me, the base, the original base as the station, as a reference station, you now have to come in here and fix the antenna height, because that's not just going to be in the log file. So now had I done a survey with it, it would have been listed in the survey file. But so I double click on it and I go to occupations, and you come down to the slant height, and the height plus the 65 millimeters from the bottom of the casing to the antenna brought it to 1.66 meters. So I'm going to do OK. So that's important. If you don't fix that, you'll ruin your processing. It will not be accurate, and it won't be correct. So you cannot forget that step right there. Alright, so now I go back to observations. I've fixed my antenna height. I go back to observations. I'm going to select the static base and the Rover, and I'm going to drag it down to trajectories to create that. That'll only take a second. And then I'm going to come over, I'm going to right mouse click and choose process. Now this will actually take a minute and a half to 2 minutes. So I'll stop talking and I will speed this up probably tenfold in the final video, and then I'll be back with you. Alright, we're done, and we had 9 survey sites, and all 9 had a fixed status in the post-processing, which that is good. You know, some of the stuff up here, if you look, this has to do with the number of observed satellites. Now, that is for this particular Arkansas reference station. And then you have your Tennessee, there it is. But if you want to look at your own units, like I can look at my raw, and I have to go back and see, so not near as many satellites for that. And then this one, even fewer. So, and I don't know which satellite, I mean, yeah, let's see. Alright, so the base was the 1111. So if I go back here and I change that back to 1111, that's the one that had fewer fewer satellites. And then you can look at the carrier phase data. Let's go here. So let's go look at ours. That's the Rover file there. So we had good coverage on that. And you know, we had some, so like this particular satellite here, look, you see a lot of breaking up there. So that's really not going to have been useful because it had a lot of breaks in it. This one, there was, you know, it could have been behind the tree, and then all of a sudden it moves and it came, whatever was blocking, it came available. Same thing here. Something was blocking the satellite, and then from here on out had good view. This one was spotty in and out the whole time. Good. We only had this one for a short period of time. And then you can look down at the bottom and see this is in 15-minute increments. So this one was just a little over, you know, probably 20 minutes. Anyhow, so we had enough. You just need 4 satellites to pinpoint your location. But the more in GPS, in the GNSS world, more is better. In all things in life, that's not the case. But for this, mo is better. Alright. So we are here. That was already processed. Sites. That's good. So we're really done. If we click here, this first icon, this is your pre-processed information. And when I click on this one, that field coordinates means pre-processed, not post-processed. Right down here under solution, you see field and fix. That means that was the solution that the GPS unit had in the field when the data was observed. And if you'll recall, we were doing RTK, so the base unit was providing RTK to the rover, and we had a fix status the whole entire time. So all of these points are going to be very precise relative to the position of the base unit. One thing that I really want to mention here is that in the construction sites, and Michael brought this up when he was just kind of reviewing the information, in the construction site world doing drone mapping, it is many times will be the case where absolute accuracy, meaning tied to the absolute point on Earth, is really not necessary. It is just based on relative accuracy of the benchmark that the site engineer will have established at the site. So he'll go in, put in a benchmark. Well, if you were to come in and do a drone map and you set your base up over their benchmark, and then you do RTK from that, and whether you do RTK or just post-processing, but you're going to process from your base that's over their benchmark. What is important is that you have accuracy just based on the benchmark, not that you determine the exact location of the benchmark on Earth, if that makes sense. So a lot of times in the construction world, relative accuracy is all that is necessary, is what I'm trying to say. So hopefully with some future videos, man, we're going to teach you guys a lot more about that. And I even look forward to learning more about it myself, because he is a pro and he knows his stuff. So it's going to be fun. We are now ready. Oh, you know what? I've already covered this a little bit, but I just want to mention it one more time. You see that we're in degrees decimal right here, decimal degrees. So if I want to change that, I can come up here to Tools. I go to Options, and under my General tab, I can change whether it's decimal degree or degree minute second. If I change it right here and click OK, it just immediately changes it. These points are still precise. This coordinate right here, the very first one you see, whether it's in DMS or decimal degree, it is still the very same specific point on Earth. That does not change. It's just a different way, and I gave you the link earlier to read that article, and that just really explains it. But it's the same. It's just, what do you need for your end customer, and what do you need for your project? Pix4D and Drone Deploy are going to always use the degree decimal. So decimal degree. So I'm going to change it to that. And also you can even change your measure. I leave it in metric because again that's what is required for the import file. But let's say we did want to do US survey feet. I click on OK. And now you see everything here is changed to feet instead of meters. So just good stuff to know. And if you change it on the display, that's also exactly how it gets exported in the CSV file. So you can't have it one way on the screen and exported a second way or a different way. It's going to just make it the same throughout the program. So I'm going to go back and fix that. General. Let's go back to metric. Do OK. Alright. Now we are ready to export. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to Tools, Export, Sites, and by default it'll export out the post-process coordinates, which is what you want. And so I already have my profile down here, which is Pix4D. Now if I ever want to edit this profile or create a new one, I can just click on these three little dots. And so for the Pix4D export, you see these are the fields that are going out. Now one thing to note, in one of the hopefully the next release of EZsurv, they will fix the program so that we can now have custom field names. So that way when you set this up and you're going to export it out for Pix4D or Drone Deploy, you can make the field names titles what they need to be for that specific program. So if you're a Drone Deploy guy user, then you can just make it be what it needs to be, and there is no additional editing needed. Once you export it out of EZsurv, it will be ready to go. That will be very nice. I mean, it's not hard to change it, and I'm going to show you that, but it'll just be nice for them to fix that because it won't be hard to do. And so I look forward to that coming out in a future release. And then let's look at the Drone Deploy, and you'll see, so for this one I have the deviation, which is dealing with the accuracy level. You can bring that into Pix4D. I'm really not sure if Drone Deploy supports that. I guess they would, but I don't use it, so I'm not familiar with it. And so if I go here to Drone Deploy, the only thing we're sending out is the site name, which will be like marker 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then the position, which will be latitude, longitude, and then the height. That's the only thing going out. And so even though there's only one field, when you hit position here, that actually exports two fields, one selection here, but two fields, which would be latitude, longitude. And that's it. So let's we can go ahead and do the Drone Deploy, doesn't matter. So I'm going to do OK. And it'll go into, and it'll be Drone Deploy number 3. So remember that. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing for export sites, and let's go and do the same thing for Pix4D. Pix4D, okay, that'll be number 5. Alright, now, alright, so here, let's open this up a little bit. Demuddy the screen. Okay, now, for the Drone Deploy, I have I'm looking for the header. No. Header titles. Drone Deploy header titles. There we go. So this is just a simple little spreadsheet that has the actual title names that they need to be. So there's that. Now, number 3 was the actual file. This is what we just exported out. So let's say we had our, whoa, my mouse is getting a little wanky. If we just did our ground control points and we exported them, now these are all of them, but you see right here, see where it says site name, lat, lon, ELL height, that's incorrect. That's not going to work for Drone Deploy. What they require are these labels right here. So I'm going to copy those, come down here, paste them in, and then I'm going to save it, file, save as. And let's do ready, import 14. There you go. That's all you need right there. You're now ready to bring that file. Once you brought your images in the Drone Deploy, you bring this in, and that's going to be your ground control points file. That's all you need. So I'm going to close that. Don't save it. Close that one. Now let's look at the Pix4D. Alright, so on the Pix4D, number 5. So again, this is what was exported by EZsurv. Now I'm going to go up to the header file, the Pix4D official header. There we go. Alright, so for this one right here, I have a notation in this column that once we bring these labels in, we need to delete column F. And the reason is Pix4D only allows for a horizontal accuracy value. So it's just saying, well, what is the accuracy of the horizontal, which is including your latitude and longitude. When it came out of EZsurv, it actually had the standard deviation, which is going to be your accuracy level for separated, one for lat and one for your longitude. But since we can only use one, we're just going to pick the latitude column. So I'm going to take these headers right here, and I'm going to copy it. I'm going to come up here and paste it. Okay. Now we know that we needed to delete column F, right? Why is that not spreading out? Anyway, so I'm going to take that one and I'm going to delete it. There you go. So there's the columns we need right there, and they have the titles that are needed for Pix4D, and that's it. So we're ready to save this file. So I'll do File, Save As. Ready for Pix4D import 11.14 final. Okay, so I just click on Save. And we'll close that one out. And so that file was really ready to go. So once you've imported your images and at the point where it's asking for your GCP import file, you're going to select that file and you are ready to go. So pretty straightforward and simple process. And I guess that's it. Man, I hope this has been helpful. Again, I'm just very thankful for the people that have helped me. If you have not already, if this video was helpful, go down and hit that like button, and please subscribe to the channel. That'll help me out, and let me know if there are any videos that you want done, and I'll see what I can do. Happy droning and happy mapping. Tim Durham for MidSouth360.com. Have a great day.